everything was plentiful in the 1920s. So I believe that the recovery is the opportunity to realign real estate value and human experiences. What we're hearing from our clients is important as well. It's their concerns and their experiences that are driving us to find solutions for them that will help not just their offices, but the future of their businesses. Through a work from home survey that we did in April, and we ran it again in September, we also had many client roundtables and talks to gather information on their specific concerns. We've been able to offer solutions to help not only their short-term reentry goals, but also the long-term needs as well. There's a lot of information buzzing in the media that has predicted the death of the office or the end of retail, but this couldn't be further from the truth. Real estate will also experience a significant change. We're seeing a lot of vacancy in office buildings, but with promising return from large tech companies who are growing significantly. In New York alone, in the last few months, in this past year, the big tech companies, the 4 big tech companies, leased over 1.6 million square feet. And they also hired 1,600 people in New York City. That's during this pandemic. So it's pretty confusing of what's going on. I don't think there's the death of the office building. Landlords and developers are looking for ways to transform their spaces and predict what the future of buildings will be. In terms of business, everything will change. Most have gone through hardships. Many business offerings are facing a decline of demand. As the post-pandemic world begins to emerge and people seek experiences outside of their homes, it's becoming clear that the pre-pandemic real estate industry may have gone too far in how it valued real estate that was not fully conceived around people. Clearly, how buildings are designed around human experience will be an important part of the equation. We want to create buildings and cities that are sustainable, that are healthy, and that incorporate smart technologies. At Gensler, we reimagine what the future of many building types may be. But today, I want to focus in on the future of offices, mixed-use developments, communities, and retail centers. Starting with office buildings, our work lives have undergone the largest beta test for remote working in history. With office properties just starting to see a small percentage of tenants returning, most employees are still working from their couches, their counters, and their bedrooms. As many of our preferences, productivity, and risk tolerances have changed, we're working closely with clients to figure out what will the workplace be in the years ahead. We will not be using space in the same way. Communal areas, density, hygiene, operations, and workflow solutions will not be the same going forward. Gensler sees this crisis as an incredible opportunity for innovation, and we are optimistic about the future. When we return to the office, what will the new experience be? How will it support our new way of working? As I mentioned before, we launched 2 work-from-home surveys with 2,300 respondents in mid-April, and in mid-April till mid-May, and then we did it again in September. The results across both are consistent. We learned from the initial survey that contrary to what was being reported, 70% of the people wanted to come back to the office most of the time. Only 12% wanted to work from home full-time. The one difference in the September survey was the increase to 19% people wanting to work from home full-time. what we are seeing that the longer people work from home, the more they appear to be adapting and would prefer a hybrid workplace. That is, working part-time from home, part-time in the office. You know, it takes 66 days to form a habit, and we've been working from home for over 9 months. So it's not a surprise that people are starting to get used to working from home. It is clear that productivity, mentoring, onboarding new staff, and building trust and culture are issues that will negatively impact the long-term health of corporations. I thought that it would be the baby boomers like me that had a problem with working from home because we're not as facile with technology. But much to my surprise, the millennials and the Gen Z generations are having the most difficulty working from home. It is not only because of their living conditions, but they need mentoring and impromptu interaction with their teams. They feel more stressed at the end of the day, and they get less done. Overall, we're striving to understand one thing. When we safely return to the office, what will that experience be? And how will the design of our space transform to adapt to the new ways of working? I believe energy, attitude, and personality cannot be remoted even through the finest fiber optic lines. People need to be together. Place matters. This is why they will go back to the office. I want to share 6 ideas about the future of the workplace, the interior of the offices. First, flexibility and adaptability have been drivers of workplace design for years. It has become more critical, not just in the short term, but also in the long term, due to the rapidly changing nature of work. I believe we will see smaller neighborhoods on office floors that can easily and quickly be reconfigured to accommodate the increasing change in business demands. Another idea is the social connector, a combination of in-person presence and digital information encouraging spontaneous interaction. The space should provide a different look and feel and enable a more informal experience. This really is a convergence of hospitality and residential with corporate workplace. This image is an image of a project we're designing for Disney for their new headquarters in New York. You know, there will be spaces that provide distinctive experiences to draw people back. We believe post-pandemic environments will no longer be a single place, but a collection of connected physical and digital spaces. These spaces will be flexible. They'll be used for informal work, as well as for entertaining clients and employees. I also believe that distinctive places are going to be what draws people back because they're going to have tools that they don't have at home to use in their office. Now, initially, we thought that amenities were dead. Spaces like the cafeteria and the conference facilities and collaborative spaces. But people would not be able to get close to each other, but they're not dead. As a matter of fact, this is a major reason why people will come back to the office, to connect, to learn, to embrace the culture, to build trust with each other. And I believe we will see an increase in amenity spaces as a destination. When we recall the devastation of 9/11 here in New York, no one was going to occupy a building above the 20th floor. Nobody was going to stay in downtown Manhattan after the devastation. That didn't last. But what did last is that building lobbies changed forever with new security requirements. Now, with this pandemic, what is going to be the lasting impact on office buildings? I believe this has been a game changer in terms of attitude toward building wellness. Health and hygiene are more important than ever. Healthier, safer buildings will be an outcome of this pandemic. Corporations and landlords will measure, monitor, and display environmental conditions in real time to give a comfort level and confidence to their employees and tenants to quickly address any issue that may arise. You see over there on the screen that there's this was designed a while ago, a year ago, before the pandemic, but it was for Delos Living. They manage the Well Building Institute and a rating system for healthier buildings. This will provide in real time air quality in each of the in different areas of the building, humidity, temperature. They can measure and correct issues as they see things being monitored and environmental conditions being monitored. Okay, so I shared a few ideas about what will happen in the workplace. Now I'll take the long view on the expectations of how we design future office buildings holistically. As we adapt to a hybrid workplace split between the office and home, the new role of office buildings will be to build community within each of the organizations, to reinforce culture with a shared purpose and mission, and to strengthen relationships between each other. Today, we recognize that office buildings are no longer just containers for people, but rather connectors of people. So the first idea, they need to be experience superchargers. The pandemic has made outdoor space even more desirable and in demand for office buildings. Our buildings need to resemble the natural settings that we're best adapted to and prioritize shared access to these types of spaces. They're in high demand. The office building of the future should be an essential part of the community. This can be achieved with reimagined ground floors and shared public amenities. We know that projects that create public space often are the most engaged with the community and can offer unique and important amenities to the neighborhood. And the final idea is that office buildings can be impact investments that are intended to generate positive, measurable environmental wellness, social equity, and experience improvements that will contribute to a strong financial return. Along with office buildings, we think that this will be a critical time for how we transform mixed use and retail centers. These buildings present incredible opportunities to support diverse, equitable, and healthy places where a range of activities and interactions can occur. Based on our research and work with clients across the globe, we're understanding the influences that will envision the resilient shared spaces of the future. The opportunity is to evolve our point of view and the resulting design and development process so that we are all more meaningfully engaged with our urban communities. We want to work in synergy with them as opposed to against them, not only to deliver great design, but to directly respond to their needs. I expect community voices to be elevated by this moment so that we will all be aware of them and their needs. We'll start to see a growing emphasis on making our community impact measurable across projects as a success indicator. This will help not only design teams, but also owners, developers, and project stakeholders. We'll need to be more intentional about emphasizing human dignity through the provision of affordable housing, public transportation, and designing for walkability. We will also need to create key amenities like grocery stores, open space, and access to healthcare. These will continue to be at the heart of what makes mixed-use design successful. We've been talking a lot about a 20-minute district. It's a district where that's walkable and that we could connect and have the different types of spaces and amenities and support functions within walking distance, within a bicycle ride away, or easy mass transit. The most critical aspect of these projects has been working with the community to achieve the kind of inclusion that demonstrates that we are listening and responding, all while leading the process and driving the delivery of a worthy vision. It's not been easy, and there is plenty of work to be done, but I believe the new standard will be to assume leadership and community engagement and to do the groundwork that ultimately enriches our designs and makes them more impactful. One of the designs, which you can see in the image on the left, is a historic site in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Its current condition is a parking lot following the demolition of the sports arena. You'll notice the site is severed from downtown by a highway, another physical and symbolic message of separation. The future vision, though, stands in contrast on the right, beginning with a public park that will be built over the freeway and allow a walkable connection from downtown to the neighboring district. And while the vertical components of the project include residential, office, hotel, and a live music venue, the true impact will be felt on the ground level. But we're also thinking about what the future of these developments means in terms of open space and their ability to create engaging destinations all over the world. We know and believe that a big part of that DNA lies in the acknowledgement of open space as an asset and as a true connector of our projects within the community. Think about it. What's the most memorable part of every mixed-use project that you visited? What has really created an impact in your memory when you travel? It is the sense of place formalized in the common areas that have been branded the experience in our brains. The Garden is a project in San Jose, Costa Rica, that exemplifies that communion of open space and nature. Of course, we're taking advantage of the quasi-perfect climatic condition in Costa Rica to create an authentic passive outdoor space. And yes, I say passive because this is what we determined was needed for this community and what would be cherished and enjoyed by the district at large as a destination. This takes me to a point that we get asked a lot by our client. How can I truly assess what we need to do during this difficult time? I almost always say this is the time to be true to your initial and true purpose, to look at your open space as an asset that can transform the surrounding community or to provide certain services lacking at this time. People are craving to be outside and craving togetherness. How can we do both within today's constraints? Maybe all we need is a space for repose and for health. We believe one of the biggest challenges and opportunities is to make our projects as local and authentic as possible. You may hear that a lot, but it is because people crave spaces of discovery and aspiration in a real context, and not just the virtual ones that we've been living in for the past 9 months. We're also looking at existing spaces that can become flexible and hackable to give communities a second life through design. Here's the West Side Pavilion in Los Angeles. It was a struggling regional mall that had lost its market share due to a lack of relevance and new competition. Our client came to us to repurpose it with the possibility of creating a campus of the future for Google. The big idea was to blur the lines between internal focus and bringing the inside outdoors. This could only happen by addressing the scale of a monolithic building like a retail center, like a retail mall. By creating new programming opportunities and a unique building type, we've created a communal place and a new neighborhood center. Monolithic single-use buildings are typically detrimental to creating great urban spaces. But by hacking this building, we created future flexibility and improved the retail by taking it back out to the street. In a neighborhood lacking a clear focus, event spaces, courtyards, and park commons are revitalizing this urban space for both the tenants and the visitors. Now, the creative office space is substantial enough to revitalize right-sized retail that activates the street and converts easily to a healthy environment. And there's many of these retail centers around the world that need to be repositioned. I show you this project in Boston. It's called the Boston Hub. It's a collision of tourism, convention center, sports, and business visitors. It sits above the transit, the commuter trains, their subway, their intercity, and intracity, and it's above their basketball and hockey arena. And we master planned this area to be a 24-hour community, to be alive every day of the year, not just be alive during rush hour or during a basketball or hockey game. The design of the hub sits over the transit. It helps stitch together the fabric of the city and the surrounding neighborhoods. It creates a district in keeping with the scale of the best moments in downtown. The weakness of many mixed-use projects is when their design fails to appeal to multiple audiences. This is often the case in tourist destinations where places that tourists frequent are avoided by the locals. By writing and developing a program that speaks to a diverse culture and audience, the hub appeals to all, and it's a new crossroads in this city. So what does this all mean? It means that the lessons we've learned through our dedication to designing better buildings and creating stronger communities are making a significant impact on the world we live in. It's important to think about the future of the built environment and the impact that it has on people. I believe this is a time to reset. And if you look at this image, this is a new building we're designing in the middle there, surrounded by two 1970s, 1980s buildings. This is a time to reset. This building will reset that district. Now, I want to emphasize that as architects and designers, Gensler views this challenging time as an opportunity to accelerate our thinking about buildings, communities, and our cities. We continue to focus on an architecture of optimism, one that has purpose, that builds trust, and yields healthier, more sustainable environments. The time for optimism is now, and the future of our cities depend on it. You know, this summer, I just want to show you all something I came across this summer outside a community center. It reads, "What if 2020 isn't canceled? What if 2020 is the year we've been waiting for? A year so uncomfortable, so painful, so scary, so raw, that it forces us to grow. A year that screams so loud, it finally wakens us from our slumber. A year we finally accept the need for change, declare change, work for change, and become the change. The year we band together instead of pushing each other further apart." 2020 isn't canceled, but rather it's the most important year of them all. This message is a different way to look at the crisis we're in, with an attitude that is inspiring and motivating. We are looking forward as Gensler capitalizes on this time for transformation. Thank you for allowing me to share with you a little bit of our thoughts, a few of our practice areas, and what we think the future may be for certain building types. And we thank you. I'm open to questions. I know this is in the middle of your meeting, so I have time. If you have time, you have any questions whatsoever about what I've just shared.
Thank you, Mr. Brancato. Un momento. El que quiera hacer preguntas puede escribirlas al chat en este momento. Comentarios. Aprovechemos esta gran oportunidad de estar con alguien como el señor Brancato para compartir sus criterios y su opinión sobre todo lo que nos está sucediendo. Bueno, en caso de no haber preguntas, I just want to say thank you to Mr. Brancato and his team.
Good. Is Christian or Veronica?
Can you hear me, Joe?
Yeah, if you look in the chat, Christian, there's a question for me in Spanish. Can you?
Yo lo hago.
I think
We have a question, Joe. First of all, thank you very much for a great presentation. We have a question from Carlos Hernandez, and Carlos is asking if you see the same crisis in retail that you see in North America happening in Costa Rica and some other places in Latin America, or have you seen different conditions?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So in North America, we were over retailed. We had too much retail, and the crisis had started before the pandemic. And so in areas around the world that still have a shortage of retail, they're still moving. In Latin America, we got the green light to move forward on a retail mall in Colombia just 3 weeks ago. We had done some preliminary work a year ago on it, and now we just got the green light to move forward. So, in certain markets, we're going to see more retail growth. We're seeing more retail growth in China. But overall, we have to figure out what we're going to do with some of the retail centers the way I showed, because we have too many. And I showed you one thing we were doing, we're creating a mixed use environment and opening it up. But I was talking with a few of the people on the real estate finance side, and they have certain assets, a lot of assets, retail assets, and they're thinking about what to do with it. One thing they told me, they said, look, we're going to start to see the online retailers come into bricks and mortar. And the reason is because they know where their customers are. They have all the data. When all these people are buying online, they know exactly where they are. When they're going to start putting retail stores close to where their clients, their customers are. It's really an interesting. It was really interesting to hear that, and I totally that makes great sense. But look, one thing's for sure: people want to get out. They want to connect. And retail is an experience, even in North America, where we've had too much retail, creating great experiences. We have plenty of retailers who are releasing space and really trying to create great experiences, even without transacting any sales at that ground floor space. They really wanted to build their brand and create great experience for people. People want to get out. So look, I think that over retail locations will definitely need to start to rethink what you can do differently. But I love the idea about going to the online retailers and trying to find out where their customers are, so you could offer some retail space, bricks and mortar retail space to them. All right. I have another.
I'm going to read another question, Joe. It reads, would be interesting to get your thoughts on the future of corporate hospitality, city hotel development, where the focus is more on corporate travel than leisure.
Yeah, that's also a good question. You know, I think corporations are still gonna have business travel. I think it's going to be cut back substantially. I just look at my own organization, big global firm, and look at the money we spent on traveling for meetings, not just client meetings, but internal meetings. I can tell you, we've saved a lot of money. We still are going to get together in person at times, but it'll be cut back. I believe, because how people have been able to work remotely, I believe that business travel will definitely be impacted. I think business hotels are going to have a problem. Not all, but the Class B business hotels, I think will have a problem. The well-located business hotels should be fine. So I'll tell you right now, we are looking at repositioning business hotels now to residential. In New York City, we're looking at a few of them for market rate and low cost residential. I think that the tourist industry, I think hotels for leisure will come back because I think there's going to be such a pent up demand after this pandemic. I think people in the short term will travel a lot for leisure, but I think it will continue. We have a project in Central America that went on hold. A leisure. It was interesting. It was gear. It was on the beach. Part of it was leisure. Most of it was business, with a conference center, and that corporations would do their meetings down there. It's being reconsidered now to be more of a smaller leisure hotel, tourist hotel, as opposed to business. So I do believe that business hotels will definitely be impacted in a negative way. But there's good ideas to transform them to other uses.
I'm going to read the next question. It's from Manrique Arrea. Manrique wrote, hello, Joe. Thank you for the presentation. What do you think is the most important aspect to consider when building community during the pandemic and heading into a new normal?
I think that creating spaces, what we call public realm, are critical. I think of some of the spaces in Costa Rica. I think of where our offices are at Avenida Escazú, and some of the outdoor spaces that have been created there. So I think we're going to need to do more outdoor spaces and connecting them. Of course, they have to be secure. I understand all that and agree with all of it. But I think that to build community we're going to need to create these spaces that people can use. When, you know, one of our clients is looking to the ground floor that used to be retail. They're looking to use it for the tenants in the building for different uses that they make very flexible space for them, for larger gatherings, but also for the community to have community meetings and functions there. It's kind of extending the hand to the community, which, you know, I think is going to become maybe a little bit more important. But I've always believed that outdoor spaces are really important. Those spaces in between the buildings become really important. You know, we're doing these buildings in Wynwood, and you know, one of the sections in Miami. We're designing them now, and I'll tell you what's most important is, you know, we love doing the building. We love designing the building. And I think the building is very important. It's going to be really great for the different tenants that they're going to have, the different types of tenants. But it's the paseos, the smaller areas around and inside, and even some surprising places. So I think some of these outdoor spaces are going to be important. Here in New York, for the pandemic, you know, they just shut down today, they just closed the indoor dining. They had 25% allowing up to 25% capacity in indoor dining. Well, they closed that. But what they have is they've had the outdoor dining for many, many months. And what happened was they took one lane in some of the streets, and they let the restaurants build these almost little structures, small structures into that one lane, and they're serving outside. And I can tell you that there's energy, there's people. It enabled some of these restaurants to survive during this pandemic. So I think that could be something permanent, where they take one lane away from the cars and give it back to the pedestrians and the people. I think that will come. I believe that anyway, because I believe that autonomous vehicles, you know, sometime in my lifetime we'll see autonomous vehicles, and you know, that may loosen up some of the traffic.
¿Qué onda?
Okay.
Qué
Thank you very
barbaridad.
much.
Qué raya en lo ofensivo, ¿no?
That's Carlos. Carlos.
So I see the next question.
Yes.
As Carlos Hernandez asked, one of the toughest challenges in the coming years is housing affordability. Love to hear your opinion on how to address the issue. It's current zoning practices by municipalities and cities actually preventing us from developing better and more affordable housing solutions. If I had the answer to that, Carlos, I'd be mayor of New York. We need a good mayor here, but I'm not. So, but it's the toughest issue every mayor has. You know, I believe.
No, perdón, estoy en la. Mira, me pareció odiosa pero eso ya empieza a mostrarte que la cordialidad.
Creo que el host le puede dar mute a Carlos.
Perdón.
Was that for me?
Go ahead, Joe.
Okay.
One moment, Joe, please.
All right, go ahead, Joe. Sorry for that.
All right, can you hear me? Okay, great.
Yes, thanks.
So I do believe, you know, zoning practices, we need to really take a look and figure out how we can create through zoning areas where we can have lower cost or affordable housing. I think that construction means and methods need to change. I do believe that modular building will reduce costs, and it needs to be enabled. In some cities where there are strong unions, they fight the modular housing. But I do believe it's got to come together. We have designed modular hotels for Citizen M. We've done a number of them around the world, and we're getting better. It's getting better and better all the time. I also, we've been looking at a similar situation with wood construction, where you can create these modules. So I think that there's ways to create more affordable housing from a design and construction standpoint. I think that we have to be smart in terms of smart zoning to enable affordable housing in our districts. One of the things that we're seeing is that the vacancy rate on office buildings obviously is creeped up quite a bit in many cities. And I think we're going to start to see a move to quality. So tenants are going to go to the best office buildings, the ones with the best systems, with the best efficiency, ones that have great amenities, great daylight, healthier, more resilient buildings. The Class C office buildings, the ones that aren't that are not great, that are not efficient, that don't have very good mechanical systems, those may be ideal for conversion to affordable housing. You have more elevators in an office building than you may have in a residential building. Well, you could take one out and you could use it for riser space for all the plumbing and all that you need for housing. There's a lot of aspects, with a lower slab to slab height, maybe it'll be fine for residential, may not be as great for commercial. So I think that we may start to see, looking at some of the older office buildings, to convert to affordable housing. And when I think of affordable housing, I don't think about housing that's just cheap and not well designed. I think that you could do really well designed affordable housing. That if the better design it is, I think people will take pride in their house and create a reasonable community. So it's a tough question, Carlos. It's the toughest question that most urban areas have them, and I think it's really incumbent upon our community, the real estate community, the development community, the design community, to pull together to help solve this, because our mayors are having a very difficult time with this.
Thank you. A couple of questions. In addition, easy one from Rodolfo Cruz. How you will talk to bankers about the fact that office developments are not dead? They think so.
Yeah, they do. But they keep on calling me to ask me for our surveys. The surveys, because we do many of these surveys, workplace surveys. So I've been in touch. Many of them. Look, many of the banks, many of the investment houses are scrambling because they have great risk. They have all these assets. What are they going to do with them? And so, maybe they wouldn't have picked up my call, 10 months ago, but now they pick up my call. Matter of fact, they're calling me. They're calling Gensler. Look, I think that things are not, what I've guided my clients is not, especially my office clients and the tenants, don't overreact. People will be back. It will be different. It will be a hybrid, but people will be back, because most corporations cannot be successful by not being in office space. How do you mentor your people? How do you bring on new people? How do you build trust amongst each other? How do you create your identity and your brand? Yes, we could work remotely. But I can tell you, for many of my clients and for ourselves, there's nothing like the energy in the office. There's nothing like being spontaneous and bouncing ideas off of people. You know, it's funny. You say, well, tech companies, they know how to use technology, and they're the ones leasing all the space. I tell you, they leased, since the pandemic started in New York City alone, they leased four companies: Amazon, Facebook, Google, and LinkedIn. They leased 1,600,000 square feet of additional office space, and they hired 1,600 more people. Well, if they thought they could work from home, and they say they're going to keep their people at home till next June or September or whatever, why did they lease all this space? Just during the pandemic, in New York alone. Look, they know, and my friend's the head of real estate at Google. He tells me he's spending most of the time in the office. They want to be safe. They've got to be safe. But as this vaccine starts to roll out, they're gonna want to see their people in the office. They just came out yesterday or today. Google, the CEO said, we may not force anybody back until September. They'll come back in waves, and I know they are because we're working on their reentry program now, and they will be coming back in the beginning of the year, slowly. But what he said is, our people will have the choice to work from home or in the office, but they will have a minimum of 3 days a week in the office. Everybody wants to sound, all these CEOs want to sound like they're giving everybody flexibility, but then they say a minimum. JP Morgan Chase over here, you may have read, Jamie Dimon says, I want my people back in the office. Well, they're just knocking down their headquarters on Park Ave, and they're building 2.6 million square foot new office building. They didn't cancel it. It's still going. Matter of fact, we have our final interview this week to design the interior for that building. I would not lose faith in office buildings. Like I said, it'll be different. Different types of spaces will become more important. I think communal spaces and people getting together will become more important. There will be some flexibility of this hybrid workplace. But they may even have different, have their hub or their headquarters location, and maybe they'll have smaller locations where maybe a lot of their people live, so they come into a smaller location. But I know that there's tools that I just don't have at home to be effective. And so the tools will still reside in the office. The people and the tools will reside in the office. So I really believe people will be back, maybe not at the levels that we had pre-pandemic, but we will see people coming back, and I think that'll only increase over time.
Thank you very much, Joe. One last question related to offices. It's from Jose Baltodano. It says, where do you see corporations looking for office space in the near future? In mixed-use developments, village, lifestyle centers, or single-use corporate parks or buildings?
Yeah, I personally do not think that people will be that single-use corporate parks are the answer. We have plenty of them in many places around the world. But as I said, I earlier talked about the 20-minute community where all the uses are together and people could walk or cycle and be able to get everything they need within 20 minutes. I believe the mixed use developments are going to be our key. I believe it's total mixed use, not just office and leisure and living. I think all levels of living. I think that senior housing needs to be mixed in with the entire community. Instead of putting the seniors out in some in a senior living center that's away from anybody except for other senior people. I really believe that the mixed use community is where we will see people going in when they need office space. I can tell you that we, here in the US, for years in the 60s and the 70s, they built corporate campuses. They went outside of the cities and they built these corporate campuses. They even put fences and gates around. So the only way you could come in, you'd come up to a guardhouse and be allowed to come in. And what's happened over the years is that people don't want to be isolated. Workers don't want to be isolated. They want to be around other amenities. They want to be, and so we've been converting some of these corporate campuses for Verizon, for IBM, for AT&T, converting these campuses to mixed use and adding housing. Some of them adding a hotel, adding some a learning center, taking up some of the parking that was on grade and putting them in parking garages, more expensive, but then they freed up land and they were able to build and make it feel a little more urban, but they had different things that could happen in those campuses. So I do believe mixed use developments are the answer going forward.
All right, Joe, thank you very much. I think we're going to wrap it up. We don't want to take more of your time from CODI here in Costa Rica. Grateful, great presentation, very insightful, and good outlook for next year, and probably I don't know, the next 5-10 years, as you say, they're going to be different, and we're going to have to reset it.
Right.
So thank you very much again, and
Great.
I hope to see you soon.
Yes, I can't wait to get down, be able to travel again. But thank you. All the best. Be well. Be safe. Happy holidays.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you.
Bueno, señores, con eso damos por finalizada la Asamblea 2020 del CODI. Muchas gracias a todos por participar. Y gracias a Christian y a Gensler por patrocinar la presentación de Joe.
Muchas gracias, buenas noches.
No, estamos en mute.
Buenas noches a todos.
Gracias.
Feliz Navidad, feliz año.
Muchas gracias.